Right. So diver 2 can be doing that while you go inside, alright?
We'll go inside this entrance here, yeah?
You're gonna go inside that entrance nice and slowly till everybody gets the bearings, right?
Okay.
Alright. Hello, Diver 1.
Yeah, Ralph.
Okay. As you go inside,
Yeah.
there's... Right, you'll see 2 doors and a victim lying across the doors, right?
Okay.
When divers examined the bridge of MV Estonia in December 1994, 3 bodies were found. However, the purpose of the investigation of the bridge was not to identify any victims, but it was to salvage certain equipment, but also to check the status and positions of various instruments and controls on the bridge. Visibility on the bridge was poor, but 3 dead bodies were discovered. 1 body was in the chart room, another close to the door out on deck, port side. The 3rd was discovered on the starboard bridge wing. One of the divers fell down there when they examined the bridge, and then the body was discovered. And who were the bodies found? We do not know for sure because they were never identified by the divers. But it is possible to draw some conclusions about who they were based on testimonies from the night of the accident and also the emergency traffic over the radio with Mariella and Celia Europa. During the last voyage, a total of 4 officers and a sailor served on the bridge. In addition, the chief mate and captain served on the bridge a few hours after departure. Then they would serve a few hours before the arrival to Stockholm the next morning. The captain and chief mate were in command when the ship passed through the Stockholm archipelago in the morning. From 8 in the evening to 1 at night Estonian time, on the way from Tallinn, 2 officers served on the bridge. It was 2nd Officer Peter Kanusar and 3rd Officer Andres Tames, plus the lookout Silver Lind. Linde's tasks were to make inspection rounds on the ship at certain times and report the status to the officers on the bridge. He would also serve as an extra pair of eyes and assist the officers with certain tasks. At 1 o'clock Estonian time there was a change of officers on the bridge. The 2nd Officer Kanusar and 3rd Officer Tames were replaced by 2nd Officer Tormi Ainsalu and 4th Officer Kaimar Kikas. When this took place, Silver Lind had already been sent down to examine the bangs that had been heard from the foreship. When he came up to the bridge again to report around 1 o'clock, the officers from the first shift had already left and the captain was on the bridge. This information comes from Linde. It is a little uncertain because he has provided different information during various interrogations. Either the captain arrived at the same time as Linde, or the captain was already there when he came to the bridge. But the sounds from the bow of the ship continued, and the officers sent him down again to investigate where the sounds came from. When Linde stands at the information desk on deck 5, the ship gets a heavy list, and after a while, Linde went outside, on deck. When the list occurred, it is likely that the captain was still on the bridge. It is unlikely that he would have left the bridge when receiving reports of bangs and noise from the bow. It was an abnormal situation, but what exactly happened on the bridge during the list, no one knows. Silver Lind is the sole survivor from the bridge. But we know a little bit thanks to various testimonies. We know that the officers spoke to both the engine room and Linde after the list. We also know that the officers made a turn to port and then they slowed the ship down. 2 alarms were sent out from the bridge after the list, the Mr. Skylight alarm and the lifeboat alarm. Several of the surviving crew and passenger testified to that. The next important event on the bridge is the Mayday call. The first distress call is heard at 1:22 Estonian time. It is 2nd Officer Ainsalu who sends it. At 1:24 the Mayday call continues.
Europa, Estonia. Celia, Europa, Estonia.
Estonia, this is Celia, Europe, replying on June 16th.
Celia, Europa.
Estonia, this is Celia, Europe, on June 16th.
Sillä Europa Viking Estonia.
Estonia.
Mayday. Sillä Europa Estonia.
Estonia, Silja Europa. Are you calling Mayday? Estonia, what's going on? Can you reply?
His voice has been identified by colleagues, so we know that it is Tormi Ainsalu. Later in the emergency traffic, the radio is taken over by the third officer Andres Tames. He had actually left his shift at 1 o'clock, but apparently he has returned to the bridge when the list occurred.
This is Estonia. Kuka se on siellä? Silja Europa Estonia.
Yes, Estonia, this is Silja Europa.
Hyvää huomenta, puhutko sä suomea?
Joo, puhun suomea.
Joo, meillä on nyt tässä ongelma. On paha kallistuma oikealle puolelle. Uskon, että yli 30 astetta. Voisitko sä tulla apuun ja pyytää myös Viking Linein apun?
Joo, Viking Line on tässä perässä ja meni varmaan tietoon. Ja voitko antaa sun position?
Siis meillä pätkitaan, meillä on blackout ja emme saa nyt, mä en osaa sanoa sitä.
The chief officer Juhan Herma was also on the bridge during the Mayday call. He can be heard in the background giving coordinates to Tames by the radio.
Elikkä siis 59 latituudia ja 22 minuuttia.
Juhan Herma had his cabin on deck 7. Captain Andresson is not heard at all in the radio traffic, nor the fourth officer who was on duty on the bridge at the time of the emergency call. However, it is the fourth officer Kikas who talks to the engine room after the list. He asked if the list could be reversed by filling the port side ballast tank or pump fresh water overboard. After the list and until the ship sinks, there are probably 5 people on the bridge at different times. It was the Captain Arvo Andresson, Chief Officer Juhan Herma, Second Officer Tormi Ainsalu, Third Officer Andres Tames, and Fourth Officer Kaimar Kikas. In other words, it was all officers except Kanusar, and no one has reported seeing him. It is not known when Third Officer Tames and Chief Officer Herma came to the bridge. All we know is that they were there at least during the later part of the distress call. There are testimonies from the corridor on deck 7 where the chief officer had his cabin, but none of those who survived from that place have mentioned seeing him. He has not been seen leaving his cabin. I have talked about those testimonies in a previous video that you can watch here. When the ship is almost completely on its side, survivors of the crew sees 2 officers leaving the bridge via the door on the port side. These 2 officers help with life rafts and life jackets. According to testimony, it must have been Second Officer Ainsalu and the Third Officer Tames. But unfortunately, none of them survives. One of them is buried in Tallinn. This means that those who remain on the bridge are the Captain Arvo Andresson, Chief Officer Juhan Herma, and Fourth Officer Kaimar Kikas. Do you want to know more about the investigations of the bridge? Chapter 8 in the final report contains more information. That was all for this video. Thanks for watching.